Throughout all of Destiny's history, speedrunners have aspired to develop the fastest methods to complete every single activity. In order to achieve the speed goals, players have hypothesized, theorized, and utilized various techniques, strategies, and routes, all in the pursuit of the fastest possible completion time. Some of these speedrun categories can be as simple as going from point A to point B as fast as possible, or so convoluted to the point of involving multiple glitches performed in succession, loadout swaps, and complicated DPS setups for optimal boss kill. Whichever flavor of ice cream suits you the best, there's something just about for everyone when it comes to speedrunning, whether you're the one eating the ice cream or you're just watching someone else enjoy it for a change. So today, I'm going to introduce you to one of my favorite flavors of ice cream. This is the magic of the solo duality speedrun. In order to get started, I should give a little bit of a background on both who am I and what duality actually is. Well, the first one is a really simple answer. I'm a PvP player turned speedrunner and full-time degenerate, and that's about it. I'm pretty known for punting the ball and being the best kicker in the NFL when it matters the most, and that's pretty much it.
3, 2, 1. Sides! What the fuck? We're gonna die. Go to the thing ASAP.
I'll res. I thought I was late, bro. I thought I was late.
As for Duality, that's a dungeon that was released during the Witch Queen in Season of the Haunted. For you new lights, that's gonna be Season 17. As far as reputation, it's gained a little bit of a haunted reputation due to the infamous bell glitching where it would kill you instantly for a little while, and the bells are still quite buggy, but one of the Bungie engineers has mentioned that it was actually quite a technical development to have that bell functionality thing in the game. And it was a notorious step up in difficulty with tons and tons of aliens coming to take your ghost away. That's pretty much it. But you'll come to find the duality speedrun plays nothing like the casual duality run. And with that, let's get into the structure of how a duality speedrun kind of looks on paper. This is how the duality solo speedrun looks when you put it in a flowchart. This is the most simple approach, and this could even be used to, I guess, demonstrate what the run looks like for a casual player in general. However, as a speedrunner, you need to take a little bit more in-depth of a look. So, I've created another flowchart that shows all the mini segments, as I'm going to call them, that demonstrate all the little tricks and parts of the speedrun that one needs to do in order to, well, do a speedrun. Starting off with the aptly named Start, we've got two major tricks here, which is the first bell skip, which ironically is actually the one that's optional, and we've got the Ad Room optimal clear. Typically, runners take one of two approaches for the starting segment. That is, mountaintop with an armamentarium or some similar armamentarium setup, or doing a trick called a finisher bounce. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's talk about what a mountaintop launch is and what a finisher bounce or a finisher launch is. With Into the Light, Bungie added a little quirk to the micro missile frame on the mountaintop that makes it deal reduced self-damage, and it gives you a little bit of physics influence. So if you look, whenever I use my max catapult lift, I barely make it to the middle of that little yellow circle. But when I jump, shoot the mountaintop at the floor, and use my lift immediately thereafter, I get an insane amount of height. This is used in a lot of different spots nowadays, and was used very, very sparingly before this, with things like bubble and well stacking. As you can see, when applied properly, it kind of gives velocity in every direction, so you can use this to gain horizontal speed as well. I like to do it off of stairs a lot in this dungeon, and as you can see, I go quite far with a single shot. The finisher launch, or the finisher bounce, on the other hand, is what I believe is Duality's exclusive glitch. Because the fact Bungie made the bells in their jank, what we can do is get something finishable, shoot the bell, finish it, and in the middle of the finisher animation, if we warp, we will go soaring upwards for whatever reason. I don't really know why this happens. The simpler, slower route involves using the finisher launch, and just proceeding to Gahlran, or the pre-Gahlran room, as you typically would in a casual run. However, runners opting to do the faster, more aggressive mountaintop strategy no longer have to hit the first bell at the bottom, instead opting to use 2 primary mountaintop bounces, one off the stairs and one comboed with an eager edge slash off of the platform there in order to skip the entire finisher segment altogether. The same concept applies. The runner will then go to the pre-Gahlran room. The pre-Gahlran room, also known as the ad clear room, is actually the first combat room of the entire dungeon where players are forced to kill a bunch of ads in order to progress. In this room, you'll see 2 Colossi, 2 Scion snipers, and 9 legionaries. 2 groups of 3 will spawn after killing a few ads in the room. Typically, you'll see runners take out the 2 Scions in the back since they skitter around a little bit, kill any 2 other ads, 3-piece the 2 sets that spawn on the left and the right, and then finish off whatever's left in the room. This gives you a very, very fast ad clear room and sets you up for the Gahlran start. Gahlran is actually our first encounter and boss in Duality. For a quick little guide, you can't actually damage him until you dunk 2 standards and defeat the shades within those side rooms. In fact, you'll find he's actually nowhere to be found until you enter the Nightmare Realm the first time. In order to activate the bells, you have to kill 2 of the bell keepers that are either next to, in the normal realm, or opposite of the bell in the Nightmare Realm. After entering the Nightmare Realm, 2 of the 4 side rooms will have a Scion that's carrying a standard essence. Ideally, you kill both Scions, grab their standard essences, kill the bell keepers, and then exit the Nightmare Realm with the bell. Referencing back to our mini segment chart here, we can see that Gahlran's actually quite linear, and there's really not a lot of sprinkles to add to our vanilla ice cream. With that being said, let's take a look at what our sprinkles are going to look like here. On the topic of side rooms and optimal symbols, this is actually quite an easy theory to execute upon. There's just one downside. We are at the mercy of RNG. The simple concept boils it down to we can get 2 of 4 symbols, and it cannot be a duplicate symbol. That means we can get sun, cup, dog, and axe in any combination of 2 of those 4. However, there is an optimal approach one would like, and that is 1 symbol to be up the stairs and 1 symbol to be down the stairs. The reason for this comes down to Bellkeeper spawns. The Bellkeepers don't actually default spawned, and if you get the same set of symbols, you'll have to wait to shoot the Bellkeepers in order to activate the bells. This is obviously slow, so typically you don't want to approach that. The optimal set of symbols is any up symbol, any symbol that's up the stairs, so that's sun or chalice, and the war beast symbol, or I call it dog, because I got that dog gimme. The next question one may ask is, why the dog? What the dog doing? Well, it's actually quite simple. Now, you see, if you pay attention very not so closely, when you go into the Nightmare Realm, on any other symbol besides the war beast, at the very end, after you've killed all the shades of Gahlran, you'll notice that you actually have to wait for the door to open, similarly to what you would have to do in the normal realm. Well, Bungie made this dungeon, and so the dog door actually just despawns instantly once you kill all of the shades. Hence our little next step in the flowchart, instant door. Now, with that out of the way, it's time to address our final mini segment in Gahlran. That is the 1 phase kill with the legendary, infamous Wormgod's grapple melee DPS strategy. Before we wrap up this Gahlran segment, I'll give a little bit of a refresher or a knowledge course on what Wormgod's is. Wormgod Caress, or just known as Wormgod's, is the embodiment of Titan Go Punch. It is the Falcon Punch placed inside of 2 giant, ugly, green bubble arms that look like anchor arms from SpongeBob. They sure look stupid, but I remember back in 2009, a friend of mine in RuneScape told me, it's not a fashion contest, it's a DPS contest. And this thing's got the power of Arnie, Mike Tyson, and every local street bar fight that you've ever seen combined into the ugliest. Anyway, the way it works is getting melee kills builds stacks. At max stacks, you do a lot of damage. At less than max stacks, you still get a lot more damage. It is just a stacking damage multiplier. With that out of the way, we can now talk about how to really add those last sprinkles onto our vanilla ice cream. The way we do that is we go into the Nightmare Realm, do our loadout switch to our DPS setup loadout, and we're gonna melee as many of these shades as we can. Keeping note on our Burning Fist stacks, we want to end and exit this room with maximum. We will get a refresh from the Bellkeepers outside, So here's what I'm gonna do. Pull out my sword, slash, and I'll whack this guy in the head. Throw down my grapple point from my navigator, switch to my boss DPS loadout. Try to rebuild some stacks if I notice they're a little low. Tractor the boss into a nice spot, and I go to town with the grapple melees, ensuring to get 1-2 punch every single time. It is absolutely imperative. As you can see, his health bar stands no fucking chance. He dies immediately. And that is the general understanding of grapple melee Wormgods. And just like that, poor Gahlran has met his fate. As we approach the halfway point of the run, we now enter our first and only out-of-bounds navigation segment, also known as the 1-2 transition, also known as the Gahlran to Vault out-of-bounds skip. 1-2 is where our ice cream starts to get a little bit more flavorful, and we start kind of involving some more elements to our ice cream. Typically, runners will approach this from a 2-grapple or mountaintop setup, where 2 grapples is used to traverse without a mountaintop, and mountaintop is used to traverse with only 1 grapple. In theory, a player could use Lion Rampant with the mountaintop setup, but Armamentarium does give you a little bit of leeway and a little bit of safety to save the run if you do make an error on a mountaintop launch. The slide jump is used in fastest execution strategies so that whenever you slide off of a big slide, you have Lion Rampants to navigate yourself through the air without needing to break your extra momentum with an eager edge. As you can see, there's nothing too new that we haven't covered yet. 2 simple mountaintop launches, a grapple, and then a little bit of in-air navigation with Lion Rampants, straight to a little kill plane that we'll cover in a moment. As you can see in the 2 grapple setup, in lieu of mountaintop, we choose to grapple up instead. This is slower but much simpler than doing a few mountaintop launches. And from there, we jump to an adjacent ledge and grapple up to the little slide area that is also out of bounds. And from there, we approach it from the exact same way, equipping Lion Rampant if we so desire, although it is not necessary. Now that we've covered ironically, pretty much the entire mini segment here, we now have the Death Warp. The way Death Warping works is you hit a checkpoint out of bounds and then defeat yourself in order to respawn where the checkpoint would initially place you. Blitzing straight on past the 1-2 transition, we now have one of, if not the most complex encounter in the game for solo speedruns, and that's Vault. Now, you may say, hey, Vault's really simple, you just kill a bunch of guys and dunk a bunch of flags, right? That's not that hard. Well, at a casual core concept, that is literally how you do Vault. Now, just imagine doing that, but every single second you're making a decision that impacts whether or not you gain or lose time. That is Vault. Simple, but extremely difficult to master. Shifting our attention over to our first mini segment, the symbol sides, upper, lower, and mini boss kills. There are 4 symbols similar to Gahlran. They are the 4 same symbols, that is the Chalice, the Sun, the War Beast, and the Axes. The Vault encounter can be quite labyrinth-like and confusing, and it can be really easy to lose track of where you are in the encounter. However, there's a really easy system developed to kind of keep track of where you are and what symbols you need to go to, and that is by breaking them up into 2 groups, upper symbols and lower symbols. Similar to Gahlran, there are 4 symbols in the corners of the room. There's the Chalice, the Sun, the Axes, and the War Beast. The upper symbols will always be the War Beast on the left facing the bell, and Axes on the right facing the bell. Similarly enough, when you turn around and face the lower bell, the Chalice will always be on the left, and the Sun will always be on the right. With this system, you can always look directly at a bell, or in general, have a reference point to look for, and you know exactly where to go from point A to point B. For example, if I have Sun and Dog, it means that I have the same side symbol, which means I can go just across the big canyon, or I can cross over my bell and get the symbol. With that out of the way, we can move to our next mini segment, and that is talking about defeating the mini bosses. But before that, we need to talk about how to actually spawn the mini bosses and how to remove their shield. In every corner, there's about 5 mobs. 3 phalanxes, 2 legionaries, and 1 colossus. If you defeat these 5 mobs and then defeat the colossus, what'll happen is you'll get a standard bearer that spawn. If this standard bear is in the correct area, when you kill it, it'll drop a standard essence. From this point, you just grab the next one, dunk your 2 standard essences, and the boss's shield has been removed. However, there is an optimal approach to fighting the bosses as well. Most runners will either have Syntheseps or Wormgod's Caress. If you have Wormgod Caress, what you want to do now is begin to punch enemies in the face and building stacks. Once you're at max stacks, you can now begin your 1v1 versus the boss. Now, the boss is actually a lot easier. It takes longer to kill the enemies than it does the boss. It's a simple pattern of shoddy, powered melee, shoddy, powered melee, shoddy, grapple melee. Just like that, the boss will fall over, and you do this 2 more times to complete the encounter. Just kidding. If you were paying attention, you'll notice I completely left out a single mini segment, and that is ammo management. You may notice that for most of the rooms in this, we've been running double special, and that's okay, because double special is actually really good when done correctly. The good news is, ammo management is actually quite simple. Although you are a little bit at the mercy of RNG, it is not as unforgiving as it may seem. If you paid attention, you'll notice that a lot of the times I'm killing the standard bears or the colossi either with a finisher or with my sword. This is in order to maintain a balance of special and heavy ammo at the same time. Sometimes I will just shoddy and do a frenzied blade to kill it, that way I have a tangle to grapple over, and other times I'll just sword it. When you use double special and you kill things with your heavy, you're more likely to generate some special ammo, and that way you can continue to keep using your sword breaker, you can continue to keep using your Ariana's Vow in order to shoot through shields, and it all comes in a full circle. It just, you cannot be afraid to kill stuff with your sword, because you will get the purple bricks on the ground. Approaching our second to last segment, that is the 2 to 3 transition, also known as the Vault to Caiatl transition. This one's all about the optimized movement, the fake skates, the sword movements, the mountaintop boost if you're so inclined to do so. Alright, so we've got one final new little guy, and that is the fake skate. If you are unsure about what a fake skate is, or a titan skate, or what sword skating is, that's okay, because we're gonna teach you today. You may have heard the phrase titan skate before, used in about season 3 from season 8. And that was a little bit different, but the general theory of titan skating is jumping repeatedly as soon as you hit the ground in order to conserve momentum that you have from an eager edge or a mountaintop or anything like that. It's very similar to bunny hopping, except for it's pretty hard to gain momentum, if not impossible. I'm not 100% sure. The titan fake skate, or the partial fake skate as it may also be known as, is the act of swinging your sword, putting it away, sprinting, and pulling it back out in order to swing with 0 downtime on your slash. The reason why this is called a fake skate is because you're not utilizing the momentum from eager edge, and this is really good for redirecting and slashing through like short corridors and hallways, kind of like Warlord's Ruin in the jail segment. For all my movement aficionados, this is the split for you. There's not much to say up until we hit the first staircase after the big statue room, other than it's all about how good you are with your movement, your titan skating, your sword skating. That's how it's all about that, because this is just a bunch of hallways that you just gotta fly through as fast as possible. There's a couple little tricks you can do with mountaintop, but the first one is at the statue. As you can see, there's a cute little mountaintop boost right off the staircase. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I love boosting off the stairs. Right into an eager edge to kind of keep that momentum going, and a grapple just to ensure we get right in the tube on the first try. Alright, so this is where we pause. There's a little thing in the mini split called Mountaintech. It's a strategy that I came up with that I just call it Mountaintech. Everyone gets really annoyed. Doesn't matter, I don't think anyone actually gets annoyed. But what it does is it uses 2 very, I don't want to say precise, but relatively precise mountaintop shots to launch yourself straight from the beginning platform at the end before Caiatl straight into the Caiatl boss room. This, my friends, is my beloved Mountaintech strategy. Our first bounce gives us a lot of vertical, persist our momentum with light rampant and an eager edge, mountaintop launch ourselves right off the end of the platform, straight into the pink room, and right there, we are now at Caiatl. All of that in just a few short moments. Now entering our final segment, the Nightmare of Caiatl boss fight. This one is done actually quite vanilla, funny enough. However, you'll see that runners swap out their Aikilo shotgun for a notable disorienting grenade launcher. That is to blind our little incendiaries who like to boop us around. However, we have a little trick at our disposal that enables us to save a bit of time. That is, the rally start. What we can do is, right before we're about to throw down our rally banner, we can actually use some sort of tool to move us forward. That could be a sword slash, an eager slash. In my case, I like to use a frenzied blade charge since I'm gonna get it back. And this will start the encounter and drop the rally banner at the exact same time, shaving off just a few precious little seconds. Continuing on into the final encounter, we approach this the exact same way one would typically approach this in a casual run, although right as we throw a rally banner down, we are already looking for our symbols and mentally prepared to enter the Nightmare Realm. As you can see, I immediately shot the 2 Bellkeepers and have gone into the realm. In between gathering our symbols, we want to try to take out as many Bellkeepers as possible so that we have very little downtime when exiting the realm or trying to exit the realm. And ideally we don't want to chase down a bunch of Bellkeepers. However, NPC AI can be quite unforgiving in this regard, and you'll find yourself having to chase them down with some frequency. After one more cycle of this, we can begin our pre-boss DPS rotation preparations, which involves building our Wormgod stacks, shooting the ruby that's on the side of the bell, switching our loadout to our pre-setup rotation, which involves our navigator and our blinding launcher. As we're warped into the Nightmare Realm for the final time, we start off by firing our blinding launcher in between both of the Bellkeepers, meleeing one and taking a look at Caiatl to prepare our grapple point. Once we know where she's going, we're going to shoot our grapple point, killing one of the Bellkeepers to maintain our max Wormgod stacks, switching our loadout to our boss DPS loadout, and continuing to that direction. Once we swap our loadouts and head in that direction, we want to time our melees on the last 2 Bellkeepers in order to have the lowest possible downtime on max Wormgod stacks. Once we've killed both of them, we want to shoot the bell, tractor Caiatl again, shoot Caiatl, and begin our Wormgod's grapple melee DPS rotation. Because it's not currently possible to 1 phase in a 1 bell, after a few hits and she's quite low on HP, we need to continue on to the next bell. The best way to approach this is see when you start doing no damage, and take a look at where she's going, running across, killing the last 2 Bellkeepers, and then starting the DPS as soon as she enters the bell range. Retractoring is nice here because it pretty much guarantees that you get the 1 grapple kill. And just like that, you've completed the solo duality speedrun. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?